Hello again, everybody. This is Dr. Joe Gilgour, Mineral Area College, and another edition of Community College Presidents talking about community college. As I say in other editions, we often speak to each other more on a regional basis, usually, to pick our brains and think of ideas and share good things and bad things that happen, and so we can help each other. But during this time, we've become more of a support group for each other as well. And so this was kind of started to reach out to community college presidents doing great work in the nation and just get to know each other a little better. So that's where we are right now. So my guest today is Dr. Russell Lowery-Hart from Amarillo College in Amarillo, Texas. Dr. Lowery-Hart, how are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Thanks again for meeting with me and agreeing to do this during this time. It looks like you're in your office. I'm assuming that's not what your house looks like back there.
This is my office, and I'm usually sitting in our computer lab taking students' temperatures, but Friday afternoons we close the lab so that we can do a extra deep clean, and I get in the way of the cleaning apparently, so they bandaged me over here.
Okay. All right. Well, we'd like to hear a little bit about you and your background and a little about Amarillo College, if you don't mind, if you could share some of that.
Well, I am a native panhandling from Texas, born and raised here. My wife's from here. We've raised our kids here. And Amarillo's got about 10,000 students. We're interesting location where we're basically 5 hours from Albuquerque, Oklahoma City, Dallas, Denver. So we're in the middle of nowhere, and that's created a culture where I think that isolation has led us to really rely on each other to solve problems, and we're an independent lot. Amarillo College, I think, is the foundation of our community, and Amarillo is only as strong as Amarillo College.
Okay. Yeah, I think that, you kind of are out there in the, I don't want to say the middle of nowhere. Obviously, I don't, disrespect the people that do live there, but you.
Well, we say we're in the middle of nowhere all the time. We have I-40 that runs through here, and about 40,000 trucks go through our community, or did go through our community a day. And we're an ag-based economy and a service-based economy, and so the situation that we're in with COVID-19 has really challenged us to rethink what our future is going to have to look like.
Yeah, definitely. And we're going to get to that in a second too. What's your background? Where do you come from? Just a little of your resume, if you will.
So despite my really super young looks, this is blonde, not white. I've been in higher ed for 30 years, 20 years in university world, the last 10 in community college world, and my degrees were all in speech communication. I started my career as a faculty member in communication and a speech and debate coach, and never imagined I would end up sitting in a seat like I'm in now. But I think it all started with a deep love of students, and falling in love with who they were and what they needed from me was different than the things that I was seeing in the university world, and the community college world has really allowed me to walk in that love in a different way.
Okay. Yeah, I find that I think I concur with that. I see a lot. It seems to have a more immediate impact on students at a community college.
Yeah.
And their immediate needs at this level. So yeah, I agree with that. Just one thing that I don't think we talked about before, but I just, in perusing social media, it seems that you might be a bow tie kind of guy. I know you're not
I am.
today.
I am a bow tie guy. I have it. I can even tie it without looking in the mirror. That's how much of a bow tie guy I am. The one blessing about COVID is that I have not worn a suit in 6 weeks. So, which means I haven't worn a bow tie, but that's my usual attire every day.
Okay. I find that it seems like people that go bow tie they commit to it. And so I'm
100%.
glad for you. Yeah.
And we kind of have our own little secret language. Like we can be in a room of 1,000 people, and we'll find the two other people wearing bow ties, and we can look at each other with that knowing look, like, ah, you know the secret code of being cool. It's a bow tie.
And to tie it without looking, that's impressive. I have worn a bow tie like twice, and I had to watch a YouTube video about 100
That's
times.
how I learned. I learned from watching YouTube, and I watched like 3 or 4 YouTube videos to figure out how to get good at it, and I found one that spoke my language, and it's the way of the world, right?
I guess so. Okay, so speaking of, I said I stalked you on social media. So the other part of that is noticing that you did some time at the Circle desk on your campus.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear more about that and how that went and how that experience was.
So when we moved to tech-supported learning, um, we we have a deep commitment to equity. And the majority of my students are living in the war zone of poverty. Our typical student, we've named her Maria, and she's 27 with 2 part-time jobs, Hispanic female that's raising a kid while she's going to school and working 2 jobs. And we really worry about what her future looks like. And in a pandemic world, especially worry about what her world looks like. And so as we all transitioned to some kind of tech supported learning, we had a lot of our Marias that didn't have access to technology at home, or even if they had access to technology, they didn't have access to broadband, or even if they did have access to both, like a mother with her 2 twins that came through the Circle desk today. She has 5 kids at home, and um, they're all in public school, so they're all learning online. She's doing one of her 2 part-time jobs online. Her husband's trying to do his job online, and she's trying to do school, all in one computer. And from an equity standpoint, couldn't I couldn't move us to a tech-supported environment and not have a way to help Maria finish her degree. And so we committed that we would stay open, that we'd keep one building open, the Ware Student Commons. The Circle desk is in the middle of the first floor that you come in. It's the only access point to the college. When you come in, you have to bathe in hand sanitizer. And then we have a thermal camera that I'm using to take everyone's temperature. And then we're connecting them to the computer or the food pantry or tutoring or advising in some form or fashion, um, or just emotional support through counseling. But Maria needs access to those things, even if she can't get them from home. And so we committed to being open. And I couldn't ask other people to take the risk of checking students in and getting them connected if I wasn't willing to do that myself. And so there's a small band of us that keep the Ware open to love our students' to success. And the Circle desk is where I moved my office permanently during this pandemic. And it's been an honor to serve our students in a different way. And I've seen so much um, fear and worry and things that I know our students feel every day, but to see them experience those things while they're trying to manage our bureaucracy of getting their meningitis vaccination or their transcripts requested or their financial aid submitted has been a real challenge and a heartbreak on several levels.
I'm sure that is obviously rewarding, for you to be able to be a part of that. It also means a lot to the students, I'm sure, to see, the president of the college sitting there and willing to listen to them and hear what they have, going on in their world.
Yeah, that's been the most powerful experience for me. As I'm taking their virtual temperature, I get a chance to kind of take their psychological temperature and ask them how things are going and what they're learning in their classes and how their families managing and what they need from us. And rarely have I heard, when I ask, what do you need from us, have I heard anything related to classroom learning. They need those things, but they need our counseling, they need our food pantries, they need our social workers, they need our help beyond just classroom learning.
Okay. Well, to shift gears just a little bit, I want to ask a question I've been asking all of my guests is about pet peeves in higher education. I know, COVID-19 notwithstanding here, I think we all are tired of that one, but are there anything that gets under your skin as a higher ed professional at any level you've worked at, as you have been through your career, something that really annoys you that may seem like a pet peeve?
Yeah, it's a meta pet peeve. So, and my team and I use this all the time. My biggest pet peeve is when we higher ed something. If we're trying to solve a problem, um, there's solving the problem, and then there's higher eding the problem. And higher eding a problem usually means that it's much more complicated and much more gruesome to experience, to implement, to evaluate. And so I I spend a lot of time when we're working on a strategic plan or building out a new intervention. We check ourselves. Did we just higher ed that? It is my biggest pet peeve. We just made that more complicated. We higher eded that thing. We've made higher ed a verb, and that's my biggest pet peeve. We in our sector, we can overcomplicate something. I think it's innate to who we are is to overcomplicate it, and I think our jobs have really got to be to simplify what we've spent decades and centuries complicating.
Yeah, and what we often find is that industry or businesses will make decisions or move on things, and people say, "Well, that looks so easy. How'd they do that? Why can't we do that?" Well, you just answered that. We
Yeah.
got our own worst enemy when it comes to that.
And we doubt ourselves and question ourselves, and I'm all about input and conversations and broad-based involvement. But at some point, that involvement has got to be how do we simplify our systems? But oftentimes it ends up higher editing our systems.
Okay, I like that. I'm going to use that. It's definitely not. You are not alone in that issue for sure. All right. Well, speaking of a problem that we've probably higher edited a little bit too, is our COVID-19 response as institutions.
Yeah.
If you want to take a moment, just talk about what Amarillo College, some steps that you've taken to help those students or transition the college, or whichever part of it you want to discuss.
I think, I don't know that our transition looks a whole lot different, other than it was really laced in a lot of love and concern. So we were fortunate. Most of our classes are now offered in 8-week formats. So we had our finals for our first spring one term ending the week before spring break. And then we had spring break when the pandemic really started hitting. That gave us a week to plan and to migrate to what we call tech-supported learning, which is really learning and teaching in an emergency situation, which is why we're not calling it online learning, because so often it's not truly online. And this environment, Maria often hears online and automatically is scared of it and doesn't think she's capable of it. And so we've talked a lot about how we can use technology to support learning, not be the conduit of learning. It's just a support mechanism. But because we're in 8 weeks, we could transition where our faculty and students were really transitioning maybe 1, 2, or 3 classes rather than 5, 6, or 7, which allowed our faculty, staff, and students to manage it, I think, more effectively. And I'm really proud of how effectively we've made the transition. The other thing that we did in moving to remote work is we had all of our student workers. I made a commitment. No one was losing hours and no one was losing pay in this pandemic through this semester, because I didn't want a pandemic to cause people to panic. And so we have some employees and student workers that are obviously on our campus and their jobs changed significantly. And so we moved all of those employees to a mentoring coaches champions program where every employee is calling 5 students or 5 to 10 students every week, checking on them, connecting them to the resources, helping them fill out the emergency aid applications. And it's allowed us to stay hyper connected to each other. Um, and so where I can see institutions fraying for the lack of daily contact, um, I've seen us grow closer and um, I think have a better understanding of how interconnected we all are because of our Coaches Champions calling campaign every week.
Okay. Wow, that's a really great a great idea. Man, this call's got all kinds of stuff I want to steal from you. I love it. All
Awesome.
right, so I want to ask you just one more question about really decompression and dealing with stress. This is a high stress time in our lives, and there's more obviously than just what's going on at our institutions, but we all have lives outside of this as well. But I also have never seen a man who commits to wearing a bow tie look stressed. So maybe there's some wisdom in that. So I don't know how you are dealing with that, but how do you decompress? What do you do to help yourself release and deal with that stress?
So it's a really good question and a fair question. And I've asked that question of people that I come in contact with every day via a Zoom or a call. But I've never been asked that question. And I'm going to fail because I don't think I'm managing this well. Um, I've 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 I'm close to the gaining the COVID-19. I'm not sleeping well. I've not managed it well. I think I'm really good at diffusing stress and not owning it. And then this crisis has created a completely different relationship with our work, and I'm still trying to figure that out, and I'm not doing it well.
Okay, well, I didn't ask because I had an answer for it. I
Well, I
think
wanted you to give me the answer.
more bow ties. I think
Uh,
I think
that's
we're
if I stopped wearing bow ties and my stress went up. You just
see
solved my problem.
correlation.
Yeah.
I do hear that from a lot of leaders that I talk to that they are very good at as well as taking care of their staff. They have people they're forcing them to take days off and
Yeah.
really trying to minimize the amount of stress on them. But when it comes to ourselves, we're kind of hypocrites in that way. We're a little have trouble dealing with
Uh,
this.
completely. And it's not we're not modeling the way. I'm not, and I've got to get better at that. And I've got my entire family at home, and I enjoy our walks every night and our dinners together. Um, but I haven't figured out a way to leave this the pressure of this environment and worrying about budgets and enrollments and timelines. I haven't figured out how to manage it, and so I think it's a good question. It's one that I need to ponder more fully.
Well, I hope whichever one of us figures it out, they spread the word pretty quickly to the rest of us.
Please
Please, if you're watching this right now and you know the answer,
give
please.
us the answer.
All right. Well, we're about out of time, so I wanted to make sure the last 2 minutes were yours. Talk about whatever you want. So go ahead, and I'll come back in at the end.
So here's the thing that I love the most about Amarillo College. We use secret shoppers a lot to help us figure out what our students need from us. And when we were reimagining the college and understanding who Maria was and that Maria was a dramatically different student than our college was set up for, that instead of spending all the time and money we were trying to do to get Maria to adapt to us, we spent time trying to get ourselves to adapt to her. And one of the things that we allowed our Marias to do is to write our college values. And those values are now written into every job description, every every employee and faculty evaluation, and are the centerpiece of our hiring process. And they're non-traditional values. While I think global education and critical thinking are the purposes of higher education, our values should reflect how we're helping our students reach those purposes. And these values have changed who I am and who our college are. And they're unique, so I'll share them with you. They're wow, innovation, family, fun, and yes. Not typical words that you find in higher education, but they are words that we found in industry, and our students love the values from Zappos. They want to be wowed at the end of any interaction with AC employee. They want to know that we're innovatively responding to who she is. They want college to be fun because so many of our first-gen students are scared to death to be on our campuses. They want to know that their family can be a part of the experience. So we've stopped worshiping at the altar of FERPA and brought families into the experience and created a family. And the most powerful value, I think, is the value of yes. Our Maria's told us repeatedly of how their lives have been defined by no, and the perfect institution for them would just help them figure out how to find yes in their life. And so we're committed to those things. And our college has dramatically increased our completion rates from the teens to 52% right now, with a goal of being at 70%, simply by changing how we love Maria to success.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. Those are unique values. That's really good. All right. Well, thanks a lot for your time. I appreciate you doing this, taking the time to do it, and being a part of this project, if you will. I hate to call it that because I don't know how long it'll go, but I'm enjoying learning more about different college leaders around the country, and yours is no exception. I really appreciate your leadership and everything you had to share. So thanks a lot for doing this.
Well, thanks for facilitating these conversations. We're all learning from them.
All right. Thank you very much, and take care. Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.